Hashtag only one ship? Hashtag Part 1. The Grand Invasion. Commander Rak'Thul stood before the massive tactical display, his six-fingered hand stroking the ridge of scales that ran along his jaw. 43 solar cycles of military service had taught him to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming that something was very, very wrong. 9,900 warships? For one primitive world? Rak'Thul's voice carried a note of disbelief that made several junior officers turn their heads. With respect, Fleet Admiral, that's like using a planet cracker to kill a garden pest. Fleet Admiral Nexpor swiveled his command chair, the polished medallions on his chest catching the light of 100 display screens. His lipless mouth stretched into what passed for a smile in Vordarian anatomy. Ah, Commander. Always the cautious one. Nexpor gestured grandly at the holographic display of Earth. May I remind you that the glorious Vordarian Empire has conquered precisely 736 worlds to date? Soon to be 737. Yes, sir, but the humans still use combustion engines, Commander. Their communications are so primitive we intercepted them by accident. Nexpor laughed, a harsh barking sound that was quickly joined by several sycophantic officers nearby. Their most advanced weapons would barely scratch our scout ships. Rak'Thul sighed. Then why commit nearly 10,000 warships? Nexpor's eyes narrowed to slits. Because I want this conquest to be remembered for millennia. I want it to be the crowning achievement of my career. The largest armada ever assembled for the most impressive subjugation in our history. 3 solar days later, as the massive Vordarian fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, Rak'Thul still couldn't shake his unease. Scan complete, Commander, reported Sensor Officer Brentu. Local space appears mostly clear except for... Wait. There appears to be a single vessel in high Earth orbit. One ship? Nexpor bellowed with laughter. One ship to defend their entire world? Put it on screen. The main view screen flickered to display a sleek, surprisingly elegant vessel. Small by Vordarian standards, it hung in space like a solitary sentinel. Are they hailing us? Asked Rak'Thul. Communications Officer Liramai nodded. Simple text transmission, sir. It reads, turn back now. The command bridge erupted in raucous laughter. Even Rak'Thul couldn't help a bemused snort. The audacity. Nexpor wiped tears of mirth from his eyes. These humans have courage, I'll grant them that. One ship against our armada, and they demand we retreat? Perhaps they don't understand the situation, suggested Rak'Thul. Oh, we'll make it abundantly clear. Nexpor's voice hardened as he addressed the fleet. First wave, move into attack formation. Let's show these humans what real power looks like. As 300 warships broke formation and surged toward Earth, Rak'Thul couldn't help but wonder why his sense of foreboding was growing stronger by the second. Hashtag only one ship? Hashtag Part 2, First Contact Catastrophe, First Wave, Full Advance. Show these primitives the might of the Vordarian Empire. Fleet Admiral Nexpor's command echoed through the bridge as 300 warships accelerated toward Earth's lone defender. Rak'Thul watched the tactical display, expecting the pathetic human vessel to flee or be vaporized within seconds. Instead, the ship's hull seemed to shimmer. Sir. Sensor Officer Brentu's voice cracked with confusion. The human vessel is... It's deploying something. Thousands of small objects. The main screen magnified to show a cloud of tiny metallic specks pouring from the Earth ship like glittering sand. Drones? Rak'Thul leaned forward. Too small to pose any threat to our hulls. Admiral, perhaps they're trying to. Warship Fong of Conquest reports hull breach. Liramai interrupted, her fingers flying across her console. Warship Eternal Dominance also reporting multiple breaches. The drones are... They're drilling through the hulls. Rak'Thul watched in stunned silence as the first explosion blossomed against the blackness of space. Then another. And another. 23 ships lost. Brentu's voice had risen an octave. 47. 62. How is this possible? Nexpor growled, his confidence evaporating. Their technology should be centuries behind ours. Sir. Liramai's fingers danced frantically across her communication panel. Our systems are being flooded with strange signals. It's some kind of noise? But it's affecting our ship controls, bypassing our firewalls. They're hacking us? Rak'Thul couldn't mask his disbelief. Cut all non-essential communications. Too late. Brentu shouted. Ground sensors are detecting massive energy buildups on Earth's surface. They're launching something. The view screen showed dozens of sleek projectiles rising from Earth's surface. Simple kinetic rods, but accelerated to velocities that transformed them into weapons of horrific destruction. They tore through the Vordarian fleet like spears through tissue paper. 127 ships destroyed. 153. 189. Brentu was practically screaming now. Admiral, Rak'Thul urged, we need to retreat and reassess. This was clearly a trap. They wanted us to commit our forces. Nexpor's scales had paled to a sickly gray, but his pride wouldn't allow him to admit defeat. No. Second wave, advance. 1,200 ships. Overwhelm them with numbers. Sir, please, Rak'Thul tried one last time. We've lost over 2/3 of the first wave in minutes. We need to. Are you questioning my orders, Commander? Nexpor's voice was deadly quiet. Rak'Thul stiffened. No, sir. But I strongly recommend, second wave, full advance. Nexpor roared, spittle flying from his mouth. As more Vordarian ships surged forward, Rak'Thul could only watch in growing horror. The real battle hadn't even begun. #only one ship? Part 3, the counterattack, deploy the electromagnetic pulse weapons. Fleet Admiral Nexpor had abandoned his earlier arrogance for desperate determination. Fry their primitive electronics. Shut down that ship and those infernal drones. The second wave of Vordarian warships, 1,200 strong, advanced in attack formation. Massive EMP generators powered up, releasing waves of electromagnetic energy designed to cripple any technology within their range. Rak'Thul watched the energy waves wash over the Earth vessel and the planet below. For a moment, hope flared, then died as nothing happened. Sir, no effect. Brentu sounded bewildered. Their systems are shielded somehow. Our scans indicate some kind of quantum barrier we've never encountered before. Impossible. Nexpor slammed his fist on his command console. No primitive species could. New contacts. Brentu's voice cracked with panic. Multiple orbital platforms decloaking around Earth. They were there the whole time. The tactical display suddenly bloomed with dozens of previously invisible defense stations. Before Rak'Thul could process this new threat, the platforms opened fire. Unlike any weapon the Vordarians had faced before, these didn't fire lasers or projectiles. Instead, they emitted barely visible distortions in space itself. Wherever these ripples touched a Vordarian ship, the vessel imploded, crushed by gravitational forces that warped and twisted metal like paper. Gravitational weapons, Rak'Thul whispered in horrified awe. They're manipulating space-time. The bridge rocked violently as their flagship took a glancing hit. Warning alarms blared as structural integrity dropped to dangerous levels. 400 ships lost. 500. 6. Brentu's count was interrupted by another massive impact that threw everyone to the deck. Through the chaos, Security Officer Dramtalk's voice came over the internal comms. Bridge. We have intruders aboard. Humans in armor. They're just appearing inside our ship. Teleportation? Rak'Thul gasped, helping a fallen bridge officer to her feet. That's theoretically impossible without. The bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke, figures in sleek powered armor charged in, moving with impossible speed and strength. Their helmets had reflective visors that showed only the terrified faces of the Vordarians they were about to kill. Rak'Thul drew his service weapon, firing repeatedly at the nearest human. The energy bolt struck the armor and dissipated harmlessly. The human turned toward him, raised a compact weapon, and fired a dart that pierced Rak'Thul's arm. Instead of pain, numbness spread rapidly. As he slumped against a console, Rak'Thul watched the humans methodically neutralize the bridge crew. They weren't killing, they were capturing. Somehow, that was more terrifying. Full retreat. Nexpor screamed into the fleet-wide channel, all pretense of dignity abandoned. All ships, disengage and return to Vordarian space immediately. The last thing Rak'Thul saw before unconsciousness claimed him was the tactical display showing more than half their mighty fleet destroyed. Their own flagship was accelerating away from Earth, trailing debris and venting atmosphere, barely outrunning the humans' relentless pursuit. #only one ship? Part 4, The Reckoning. 3 weeks later, Commander Rak'Thul stood before the Vordarian High Council, his new prosthetic arm still aching where it joined his shoulder. The Grand Council chamber, with its towering crystalline spires and ancient battle banners, had never felt so suffocating. 212 ships, he stated flatly. Out of 9,900. That's our final casualty report. The 7 High Councilors stared down at him in stunned silence. Even Supreme Councilor Rak'Thul, legendary for his stoicism, looked visibly shaken. How? Councilor Zentiv finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How could a primitive species inflict such catastrophic losses? Rak'Thul activated the hologram projector, showing intercepted Earth transmissions they'd only recently managed to decode. It was a complete intelligence failure, he explained. We believed humans were divided, primitive. The reality? They detected our surveillance probes decades ago. They unified their entire planet in secret, pooling resources and knowledge, preparing specifically for us. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the chamber. The single ship was bait, Rak'Thul continued. They wanted us to underestimate them. They studied our communication protocols, our weapon systems, our tactics, all while feeding us carefully crafted disinformation. And Fleet Admiral Nexpor? Asked Councillor Hekmar. Committed ritual suicide upon return, Rak'Thul replied grimly. As is tradition for such a defeat. The chamber doors suddenly burst open as a junior officer rushed in, breaking all protocol. Councilors. Commander. A human vessel has entered our system. It's approaching the homeworld. Panic erupted until Supreme Councilor Rak'Thul's thunderous voice restored order. What are their demands? The officer swallowed hard. They sent only this message: we could follow and finish this. Instead, we offer peace, this time. The implications hung in the air like a blade. The humans had let them flee. Had let survivors return. Had tracked them across 17 light-years to their homeworld. We should mobilize immediately. Councillor Yevbal slammed his fist on the table. Defend our homeworld. The humans cannot possibly, with respect, Councillor, Rak'Thul interrupted, that's exactly what Fleet Admiral Nexpor thought. I was there. I saw what they can do. He stepped forward, his voice gaining strength. The humans could have annihilated us completely. Instead, they captured some of us, studied us, then released us. They let us flee. Not out of mercy, but as messengers. Rak'Thul looked each council member in the eyes. I recommend we accept their peace offer and open diplomatic relations immediately. The alternative is extinction. As the council erupted into heated debate, Rak'Thul stared at the tactical display showing the lone human ship waiting patiently in orbit. "The message is clear," he whispered to himself. "Don't mess with Earth."